Pigments 3 update from Arturia.
Howdy doody, Buckaroonies. This may come as a surprise, but I'm a very big fan of just about everything Arturia does. I absolutely adore the V collection. I've got not one, but two of their MIDI controllers sitting up there behind me. This here microphone doodad is running into an audio-fused studio, and I've even got the cool swag shirt to prove it. As a matter of fact, I've got not one, but two swag shirts to prove it, except this one has a giant hole in the back of it now, so that makes me very sad. But today is a good day because today means the new Pigments 3 update is here. So yes, indeed, Pigments 3 is here and it is bigger, badder, and louder than ever before. This is also a free update, so if you have Pigments, you can pause this video and go download that right now. I've also cooked up 15 free presets for Pigments 3, so if you want to pick those up, you can find those with the link down in the description below. And Arturia even offered to sponsor a giveaway of 3 copies of Pigments 3, so if you want to enter for your chance to win a copy of Pigments, you can join my Discord with the link down in the description. Transition. In today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 sound design tips inside of the new Pigments 3 update, and this is a pretty chunky update that packs in a lot of cool new stuff. First up, we've got the new additive synthesis engine here, which brings the power of additive synthesis right inside of Pigments while making it easy and approachable, but with a couple unique twists. There's also the new utility engine, which gives you 2 noise sample layers and an additional oscillator that you can use as a sub-oscillator or as a third tone source. In the filter section, there's the new Jupiter 8 filter, which brings the squelchy, thick, resonant, juicy, Jupiter-y goodness to Pigments. And there's some new filter routing options, which are really powerful and essentially give you access to a somewhat bitimbral version of Pigments by independently routing the filters to different effects. Speaking of effects, there are multiple new effects inside of Pigments 3. First up is the multi-band compressor, which gives you that classic bro TT sound right inside of Pigments. There is the new BL20 flanger, which brings rich, flangy goodness. There's the new Juno chorus, which brings a Juno chorus right inside of Pigments. And there's a really sick new pitch delay effect that adds some really sparkly, interesting, shimmering goodness to your patches. For those of you who aren't too into sound design, there are also 300 new presets inside of Pigments 3, as well as some enhanced in-app tutorials to teach you how to use Pigments and how to start designing your own sounds. And speaking of sound design, there are 64 new wavetables included in Pigments 3, including some designed by ya boy right here. The new Pigments 3 update is pretty significant and I think really cements its place as one of the best synthesizers for the money in terms of just pure value, because not only do you get a pretty powerful synth with subtractive and some basic FM stuff, you've also got a wavetable synth, you've also got a granular synth, you've now got a basic additive synth, and you've got a whole lot of effects and features, including doing like generative melodies and stuff like that, while not being hard to use. And I think that's a pretty hard thing to get right, and there are few synths out there that do that. So even if you're totally new to synths, Pigments is a great choice to pick up and learn, or if you're more experienced with sound design and whatnot, it gives you plenty of room to play around and create something new. It is noise making time, so here we are with Pigments 3, and of course we've got this super fun new additive engine to play with, but we'll get to that in a minute. First up, let's talk about the new wavetables inside of Pigments 3. Like I mentioned, there are 64 new wavetables inside of Pigments 3, including some made by ya boy right here. To access these, we'll go to the Wavetable engine, we can click on the name and go to the Pigments 3 folder. Here we can access all of the new wavetables. These cover everything from some of your bread and butter and core sounds to some more experimental, heavy, hard-hitting, modern stuff that's a whole lot of fun. Now, while we could certainly use these as they are, I think one thing that gets overlooked about Pigments a lot is that it's actually a pretty powerful and very easy wavetable generator sound design platform. Making your own custom wavetables in Pigments is super easy. What I like to do is go into the Functions tab here, and I'll take Function Generator 1 and turn this into just a simple ramp-up waveform. For right now, I'm going to leave this on loop mode, but normally you'll want to leave this in one-shot mode. If we turn this on, we'll get a nice visual representation of what it's doing. Now, what I'll do is tie the Function Generator to a couple of different parameters. I've tied it to these different wave shaping parameters here. I tune the modulator down, and maybe even for good measure, we could move through the wavetable position a bit and can create something that goes from something fairly mellow there to very spiky and modern and aggressive. Now, all you'll need to do is bounce this out in your DAW. So I'm going to set this to one-shot mode, make sure this is on sync, and set this to 1 bar. Now, on your screen, you'll see a chart showing you which note you'll need to sample based on your DAW's sample rate for the best results. So I've set this up here in my DAW, and then I'll bounce this out or resample it, and now we can drag it into a fresh instance of Pigments to create a new sound from. So here we've got the new bounced wavetable. Let's take a listen. Sounds pretty kooky and gross. We'll drag this onto the wavetable engine of Pigments here, and now we've created a new wavetable to use in our patches. Super simple to do and a lot of fun. Wavetables and Pigments are a whole lot of fun to make sounds with. Here's one of the patches I made with just a couple slow evolving LFOs, a bit of help from the randoms, a couple of filters, and some very basic effects, as well as some careful envelope settings. You can really easily design some very cool evolving textures and drones without a whole lot of effort. One of the other new features of Pigments 3 is the ability to change the filter routing to split up the filters to different effect sends. So here I've got Engine 1 as a wavetable, just kind of a saw wave type of thing here. Engine 2 is a sample playing a piano sample, and I've routed this to go into filter 2, whereas Engine 1 is going into filter 1. So filter 1 is a low pass, filter 2 is just all the way open. Now normally all we could do is go between series or parallel routing for the filters. But if we go to the new dropdown, we can actually go into split mode. We could send the output of filter 1 to FXA and filter 2 to FXB, or filter 1 to FXB and filter 2 to FXA. If that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, it's actually pretty simple. If we flip into the Effects tab here, we can see we have FXA, which has 3 inserts, and then FXB, which has another 3 inserts. But what this means is that those two filters are going into these independently, and this wasn't really possible to do a true kind of bi-timbral setup from Pigments before, at least in a neat and clean way. For FXA here, I've set up a delay and a reverb, super basic and straightforward, and then on FXB, I've set up the new multiband compressor, the new chorus Juno 6, and the new pitch shifting delay. So that's going to be on the piano sound, whereas the delay and reverb are going to be on our saw/square wave type of thing. And that gives us this. Now, of course, crazy additive synth patches and new wavetables and crazy futuristic effects are very fun and exciting, but I think one thing to not overlook when you're designing patches in Pigments is the humble but very useful analog engine. Here, I've got a basic twist on that patch we made earlier. I just changed this out for a different sample. So we've got this kind of cool drone pad thing started, but if we take a listen, it maybe sounds a bit digital and thin, and that's where the analog engine comes in here. It also got a new update with a ramp waveform. So here I've set up a super basic patch, just using saw waves, tuned the first one an octave down, offset the fine tuning a little bit, blended these into taste, and added just a little hint of noise, as well as a slight bit of FM controlled by an envelope. So we've got a bit of a more aggressive thing going on, and then it rounds off to be a bit more stable. And in conjunction with the new Jupiter 8 filter, you get those sweet analog, warm, big, gooey bits to your patches. Pigments 3 also brings the new additive engine, which is called Harmonic, and this is a really fun additive synth engine that goes all the way up to 512 partials and makes for some super interesting futuristic sound design stuff, or just some kind of weird layers that you can set underneath your favorite patches. Normally, additive synthesis stuff is kind of complicated, but the Harmonic engine is very straightforward to use. We could set the number of partials from 128 all the way up to 512, or all the way down to simply 8. And this is kind of fun to play with, especially just, 32 or 16. You can get these kind of lo-fi additive synth sounds, which can be a lot of fun to explore. The real fun with the additive engine, though, comes when you start to shape the additive spectrum. So we could do things like some stereo imaging here, so we can take the odd harmonics and even harmonics and pan them out differently. We could go in and do random, you'll just randomly pan them out, and periodic, which adds kind of a slow LFO thing that's very interesting because it's individual parts of the harmonic spectrum being panned around your head. Another really cool feature is the spectrum filter here in the center, which gives us a couple of different filter types. So let's maybe set this to something like signal, and then let's do resonance. Now we'll increase the depth and maybe morph between these and apply it to a different section of the spectrum. And as you can imagine, with a little bit of modulation, that can be a lot of fun. We can also shape the spectrum here, get even harmonics, odd harmonics. We could tilt the spectrum, and we can offset the tilt as well. We could change the ratio and send this with our modulator. And then we've got some interesting spectrum shaping effects here, like window, so we can add a bit of a boost to certain parts of the spectrum, which is kind of like doing a filter sweep without adding a filter. We can do cluster. And that can be really great for adding some inharmonic movement to things like bells, and we've got shepherd tones. And with that, we can do a lot of really fun, futuristic, sci-fi things. Pigments 3 also introduces several new effects. Here, I've made a quick patch to demonstrate a few of these. I've got the new Chorus Juno 6 here, which adds a really lush Juno-like chorus. Let's maybe swap the tape echo out for the BL20 flanger and slow that way, way down and increase the delay quite a bit. And then on layer B, I've got the new pitch shifting delay. So this is going to create an octave up effect for some really nice shimmering things. And let's feed that into a reverb for the fun of it and create a kind of our own homebrew shimmer reverb. So I've got the additive engine here, and then I've got a wavetable here. If we give this a play, got a nice kind of shimmering layer underneath things. Let's increase layer B for that to be a bit more obvious, and let's pitch shift this up 2 octaves. It probably comes as no surprise that these effects are all really good and make it pretty straightforward to make sounds that are kind of just ready to go right out of Pigments. You don't need to do a whole lot after the fact in the mix besides maybe a little bit of EQ. Considering we've got 2 separate effects buses, so we could have up to 6 total inserts, that's a whole lot of power. And with the new routing options, we could do 2 separate effects buses for 2 separate layers of pigments, including the auxiliary. So we've got another 3 inserts here that we can send and return from. So that's a whole lot of stuff. And all these effects are just super fun to mess with. Here I've got another patch just to listen to what these effects add. And mind you, that's just some basic stuff so far. So we could bring in maybe the new chorus, add a really rich moving chorus effect. We could go to the new flanger, create some big, crazy flangery stuff. We've got the pitch shifting delay to create cool shimmer stuff. Let's bring that up an octave. And of course, we've got the multiband to absolutely annihilate any and all dynamic range in our sound to make it sound super big and awesomer. And there you have it, 5 sound design tips for the new Pigments 3 update. This is a free update again, so if you have Pigments, you can go download that to start playing with this stuff for yourself. If you don't have Pigments and you want to check it out or find more information, you can check out the link down in the description below. With that, what do you think of the new Pigments 3 update? And is there anything you might like to see added in a future version? I think as it stands right now, Pigments is well on its way to becoming one of the more powerful synth plugins out there on the market. So well done, Arturia. Thumbs up. As always, I'm really not surprised, but well done. Big thank you to Arturia for sponsoring the giveaway. If you want to join the giveaway to enter to win a copy of Pigments, you can join my Discord with the link down in the description below. And with that, I think we are all wrapped up here. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And as always, I hope this inspires you to get out there and make something awesome. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys again soon.